Hello and welcome back, guys. I'm your instructor Sambhav, and in today's session, we are going to talk a very interesting topic called as vectors in R analytics. Now, I will not be able to cover the entire vectors in one video, so I have split it into multiple videos. This is a first part of the vectors where we will talk about what is vectors, how can we create them, what is the concept of nested vectors, what are the different methods or different functions using which we can create vectors, and once the vector is created, how can we assign names to the elements or the components of the vector. So let's start. I have mentioned here a definition of vector. A vector is nothing but a sequence of data elements which can store multiple values of similar data type. Now let us see what does it mean. Let's assume that I am creating an object A and I'm storing a value 5, right? So A contains 5 in it. Similarly, B can contain 10. B value is 10. What if I want to store multiple values in this particular variable C? Let's assume 1, 2, 3, comma 4 and 5, right? Now if I execute it, R will throw me an error stating that unexpected comma. It is saying that it cannot identify this comma. It says that it cannot identify what this comma means. Does it mean that we cannot store multiple values in an element? Of course, we can do that. That is why we have a concept of vectors. So, what is vector? Vector is a sequence of data elements which can store multiple values of similar data type. Right now, here similar data type means all the elements. So these are called as the element. One is an element or it is also called as a component. So let's say C is a vector, considering C to be as a vector. So these has got multiple elements 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now these elements must be of similar data type. Similar data type means it should be either numeric or it should be either character or it could be either logical. It cannot be a mixed. Vectors cannot have mixed data type. Partially, few elements as numeric, few elements as character, and few elements of logical. That is not possible. Now, how do we create a vector? In order to create a vector, we will use a function called as combine, which we will refer here as C. So now if I execute it, you will see that C contains multiple elements 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So here we can create a vector using a combine functions. C stands for combine. Now in this example, as you can see here, I have created three vectors. One is your numeric vector which contains all numbers. Second one is a character vector which contains all character values, and then we have the logical vectors. Now let me create vector 1, and let's assume that I am creating a vector 1 as, let's say, 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma 4 comma 5. We know that. Vector 2, let's say vector 2 combine, and let's take red, green, blue, right? So if I want to see the elements of vector 1, I can execute this. Similarly, if I want to see the elements of vector 2, we will have this. Similarly, we can also create a logical vector. Let's say vector 3 and combine, we can give true comma false. So we know that the logical values are true and false. So in R, you must make sure that true and false must be in uppercase. No matter whether you use short form true, T for true, F for false, it does not matter, but it has to be in uppercase. Let's say if I write true comma false, right? So vector 3 contains 4 elements and it is a logical vector. Now how can we say, or how can we find that what is the data type of vector 1? In order to do that, we will use a class function for v1. See, it will say it is a numeric vector. Similarly, I can use class function to identify the data type for vector 2 and class function to identify the data type for vector 3. Correct. Now, sometimes you are asked what is the dimension of the vectors? Dimension of the vectors. Many people believe or many people think that vector is a single dimensional array. It is not correct. Actually, vector is dimensionless. Vector is dimensionless. How do we find that? If you use the dim function is used to find that dimension. So let's say vector 1, it will say null. There is no dimension to it. Similarly, vector 2, there is no dimension towards it. So remember the point, vectors are dimensionless, right? Now we can also okay, before we proceed to other concept, let me ask you a simple question. Let's say I am creating a vector 4 and then I am writing the elements as 1, let's say combine function 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma red comma blue. Now what will be the result? You might be thinking that just now we have discussed that vector must be of similar data type. So this is partially numeric 1, 2, 3 and then we have two character values. So it is wrong. If I execute this, you might be thinking that we might get some error, but it is not. Vector 4 is actually character vector. So what happens when you are having combination of numbers and character values together? The data type is casted to character, to the higher data type. So if I look into the class of vector 4, you will see it is a character vector. Please remember that. Same thing applies for logical vector as well, right? So we have discussed this. Now guys, here I have given 3 questions. Create a vectors from 1 to 5, 6 to 10 and name of 3 cities. I would suggest you to do these questions as an assignment for yourself, and you can send me your codes by commenting in my channel. You can comment and you can send your codes. I will look into it and I will reply back. Now we'll talk about nested vector. Now see, we have a vector called as v1, correct? Now assume I am creating another vector called as v5, which contains elements such as 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there are again 5 elements, v5. v5, you see, it is 6 to 10, correct? Now what is nested vector? Nested vector is nothing but where we use vector inside a vector. That means multiple vectors can be combined together to create a vector. For example, let's say vector 6, I am combining vector 1 and vector 5. Now again, in order to combine, we will again have to use a combine function, right? And vector 6 is nothing but 1 to 10. Similarly, I can also create vector in this way. Let's say vector 6, which is from vector 6 nothing but it contains numbers from 1 to 10. After that I can write 11, 12, 30. So this is also a valid way of creating vectors. So you can see we have a vector called as vector 7, which contains number from 1 to 30. This is a simple concept of nested vector where we can combine, where we can use vectors inside a vector to create another vector. Now let's try to solve this question. Create a vector from 1 to 50. Now this becomes a difficult task. Vector 8, if I tell you please create a vector from 1 to 50. Now you must be thinking that we have to type 1, 2, 3 and it goes on and on till 50. This is really a very tedious task. Yes, of course it is. So in order to solve this problem, we have another method. The first method which we have been using till now to create a vector is a combine function. The next one is colon. It is colon, right? In colon method, let's say for example 1 to 50, all we have to do is we just have to give our starting number and then the end number. So from where you want to start the vector and where you want to end it. So I want to start it from 1 and end it till 50. So we will have vector 8 as 50. 1 to 50, right? Now guys, you might notice here that we have numbers 1, 23 and 45 in the square bracket. What does it mean? It actually denotes the position of this element. So this 1 in the square bracket denotes that this is the first element. Similarly, this 23 in the bracket denotes that this is the 23rd element. Similarly, it indicates that it is the 45th element. Similarly, let's say for example I want to create a vector 9, and let's say it is from 60 to 100. So 60 is the start value. From 60 it will create another vector up to 100. Now if I give vector 9, you see it is creating 60, 61, 62, and it goes on till 100, 99 and 100. So again 60 is the first element, 76 is the 17th element, 92 is the 33rd element. So this is a second method. Now we have one more method to create a vector, which is called as sequence, and in short form it is known as SEQ. Now let us see what the sequence function can do for us. So sequence, this is a basic syntax of sequence. Sequence syntax contains three elements: from, to, by. Now what is the from value? From indicates from where do you want to start the vector. That means what is the starting point. To means the last value. To is nothing but the last value. And by is nothing but an incremental value. That means from how should each of the element be incremented by. Let us create a vector. Let's say I am creating vector 1, assume, and I want to use sequence 1 to 10, right? I don't want to use the by function here. I'm just giving it like this. This is also valid, vector 1, and if you see it is 10. Now let us see what it means. Sequence is a function. 1 means from where you want to start the vector. 1 from where you want to start the vector. 10 is nothing but what is the last value of the vector, till where your vector has to go. Here I have missed the by value. If you do not specify the by value, by default R will take the value of by as 1. So that is the reason you see it has been each of this value has been incremented by 1 in the next iteration. So 1, so it has been incremented by 1, so we get 2. So 2 again has been incremented by 1, so it becomes 3, right? Now let's say for example I am creating another vector. Let's say for example I want to create a vector which should contain odd numbers from 1 to 20. So let me give a vector name as odd. I will use a sequence function. So if I have to create odd numbers from 1 to 20, I will use the starting point will be 1 and the last value is 20 and the incremental value is 2. So I'll mention it 2. Odd. You see I got 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 19. Similarly, let's create a vector called as even, right, from 1 to 20. So I'll give sequence. Now even number is 2. It does not start from 1, it starts from 2. So we will give 2 up to where? 20. And then again I have to give the same logic 2. So that means the incremental value must be 2. So from 1 it has to be incremented. The next value must be incremented by 2 units. So it becomes 4. Again 4 must be incremented by 2 units. So it becomes 6. So let's execute it and see this. Right? Now another question. Let's say I want to create a vector of even numbers. Let's say even 2 from 40 to 1. Now it is in the reverse order. From 40 to 1. So my starting value is 40 here. From value is 40 and what is the end value? It is 2, right? And incremental value will be 2. No, incremental value is not 2. Incremental value is minus 2. We are decrementing the value. So my starting value is 40. Then the next element of this even 2 vector is going to be 38. It is going to be 38. So we are the value the by value is actually getting subtracted by 2. Again 38 minus 2 will become 36. 36 minus 2 will become 34. That is why here the incremental by value will be minus 2. Right? Now let's say even 2. See, 40, 38. So it is actually decrementing from 40 to 38 and so on and so forth. So that is why I have specified the value. Now guys, you must also be sure that this must be written in order. It has to be in order from, to, and then by. From, to, and by. If you don't want to write, or if you don't want to write these values in the order, then you will also have to specify the keywords. Even 3. Let's assume I want to create a vector from a vector of even numbers from 1 to 20, right? Sequence. Now I will write 2 is equal to 20, comma, by is equal to 2, and from is equal to 2. So in the previous example we have mentioned, we have created even vector where we have specified it in order. 2 start value, 20 is the end value, and 2 is the increment value. Here we have not specified the keywords to, by, from. So it must be in order. But if you are using the keywords to, by, from, it need not to be in order. It can be in any order. So let's say for example even 3, we have got a vector 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 up to 20. Clear? I hope this is clear to you. So we have created this odd vector and even vector. Now the next point which we are going to discuss is how to assign the names to the elements of the vector. Let's say for example vector 1. We have created vector 1. Okay, let me create a new vector 1. So now guys, see, already vector 1 is there. I am creating another vector called as vector 1. Combine 1 comma 2 comma 3, right? So what will happen? It will be overwritten. Now the value of vector 1 is 1 to 3, not 1 to 10. Alright. Now let us learn how to assign names to the elements or the components of the vector. So these are the elements or the components of the vector. So let us learn how to assign the names. In order to assign names, there are two methods basically. The first method, see, in both the methods we will use the same function called as names. Names is a function which is used to assign the names of the elements or the components of the vector. So we will give names and then we will specify the vector name for which we want to assign the name. So let's say for example I want to assign the name for vector 1, right? Again we will specify the names whatever name we want. So let's say we give the name as element 1, let's say element 1, element 2 and element 3. So there are 3 elements. So I want the first component or the first element, I want to assign the name as element 1. To the second element I want to assign the name as element 2, and to the third element I want to assign the name element 3. Now since see again here we have multiple elements, so we will have to use the combine function to pack them up. And now if I give vector 1, you will notice that it has got a name, right? Now let us try to assign names to the even vector. Now if I follow this method to assign the names to the even vector, it will really become difficult because I will have to type the name 10 times. And let's say for example I want the names to be as E1, E2, E3, E4, or let's say even 1, even 2, even 3, even 4. So I'll have to type it. Now in this second method you don't have to type all the elements using combine function. What you can do is we use the same function here also called as names. Please pay attention, it is names, not name. Names, then we will give the name of the vector. And now we will be using another function called as paste 0. It is not paste O, it is paste 0. Now in the paste 0 there will be 2 elements. The first element is what you want to have the name. Let's say for example I want to have the name as even 1, even 2, even 3, even 4, even 5, even 6, even 7, 8, 9 and even 10, right? Now in this name you will notice that even is being repeated. So my first element will be even, right? Now it is repeated from, for how many? From 1 to 10. I'm sorry. So 1 to 10. 1 is to 10. So this is nothing but 1 is to 10 is nothing but a vector, right? This is how we can create a vector. So if I give here even, you see I have got the name as even1, even2. Now let us see what this command is doing. Names is nothing but a function which is used to assign the names of the elements of the vector. Now paste 0. So paste 0 is used to concatenate two elements. Now, if you look at this particular element, you see there are two parts of, we can divide it into two parts. One, the character portion which is even, and the numeric portion which is 1. So you see the character portion is repeating even, 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 even. So I have given even. Now I am trying to combine or concatenate it with the vector. Vector is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up to 10. So that is how it basically works. So if you execute this, it will become. Now guys, another function which I want to teach you is called as length, right? Length is actually used to find the length of the vector. Let's say for example even. So the length of even is 10, right? Length of odd is, length of odd is 10. Now the reason why I'm teaching you is because we can use this function in order to assign names. Let's assume that I'm creating a vector, let's say v10, and it has got elements from 1 to 100, right? So v10, let's have a look at it. It is 100 elements are there. Now assume that I want to assign the name to all these elements, and the name should be like e1, e2, e3, element 4, element 5 up to element 100. So what we will do, names of vector 10, and then we will use the function paste 0, not paste o, and then the character portion which will be repeated is e. So let me put that in double quotes, and then 1 is to 100. Now in certain situation, if you do not know what is the exact length of the what is the final value, exact length of it, so what you can do, you can also use the length function, length of v10. So here the length of v10 would be 100, right? See, length of v10 is 100. So it is actually saying 1 is to 100 itself. So now if I execute this and if I give here v10, you will see the elements as v10. Alright, I hope it is clear guys. So this is what we have discussed. Again, I have given two questions. Please try to solve these two questions and you can submit your results in the comments. I will have a look at it and I will reply to your comments. Thank you so much for your time and patience. Please don't forget to subscribe my channel and also not to press the bell icon so that you will get the update whenever I'm uploading a new video. Thank you so much for your time guys.